Much research, academic or otherwise, has gone into answering the what women want question. In this age of reels and skits, it has been the subject of many good and a lot of bad jokes. Most people can remember at least one joke about how impossible it is to understand women. On today's episode of the X and Y Convos, I am sitting with Chioma Agwuegbo, the executive director of TechHerNG. I personally love the way she describes her work. She says she has built a portfolio that aligns with her interests: media, women, politics, and digital. And I can tell you it is an impressive portfolio. Together, we're responding to the question of what women want from the point of view of an equitable society with an enabling environment for all genders to thrive for collective development. Individual preferences may differ, but can we set an agenda for achieving development outcomes? Let's find out. Okay, Choma, it's great to be able to pull you in and have this conversation with you because I know that we've had several kind of offline conversations hearing you speak about this thing. But today, let me ask the question every man seems to ask. What do women want?
That's a big question. I think the first thing I'll say is women want to be left alone.
Okay.
And I can speak about that when you come from the lens of violence.
Right.
The question a lot of people ask is, where are women safe on earth? They're not safe in their homes, they're not safe in churches, mosques, places of learning, they're not safe at their jobs. So when we talk about violence, then we say women want to be left alone. That's the question, or that's the answer to that question. When you look at women in the public sphere, when you look at women in society, women want to be treated equally. Women want to be able to aspire. I get very irritated when I hear things like we want to create a quota for women because it seems like an addendum as opposed to something that should be institutionalized.
Right.
Wherever we go. So there's a bunch of things that women want, but
Right.
wearing my SGBV advocate hat, I would say they just want to be left the hell alone.
Huh. I like that because one of the I feel like the greatest detours that we get in conversations about gender equality is always, oh, but there are different women with different needs. And again, just talking about violence, we have people's voices documenting, oh, but some women like violence. I mean, bold enough to actually say it out loud, and that multiplicity of demands almost kind of make it easy for people to say, well, we don't know what you want, so we're not going to do anything about it. How do we sync this? What's the difference between things that need to be done on scale and things that just represent individual choices?
I think so. To quickly respond to what you said about some women saying that they like violence,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of women have been socialized to believe that violence is the norm.
Mm.
And there's lots of studies that have shown, you tie an elephant down, and when you take off the chain, the elephant still believes that it's tied, so it won't move. There's a lot of studies that have been done around that, to show how normalization of certain things, just become normal for people.
Right.
So some women believe that violence is the norm. Women are raised and they watch their mothers getting beaten, and so
Right.
they believe, I'm going to get beaten as well. This is the path that I'm
Right.
on. It's the same thing for FGM, to the point where people started saying if they hadn't gotten caught, then they weren't complete women, because you have been socialized and accultured to see that women get caught, and all of those types of things. So there's that. So I won't take it as what women want, because if you
Right.
look at people today, no one wants to get beaten. People don't want to feel pain. We spend our lives escaping pain, right?
Right.
So whether it's the pain of work, whether it's the pain of things that we need to do in the home, whether
Right.
it is, physical pain, etc. So I don't believe
Right.
that women want to feel pain. I mean,
Right.
except, you're into BDSM and those types of things, then, rock your world the way you want. So there's that. I believe that people wanted to be treated equally.
Mm.
And this is whether they're a man or they're a woman. People just want to be treated equally. I want to be able to aspire to be president of Nigeria. I want
Right.
to be able to aspire to lead the military.
Mm.
I want to be able to aspire to do things that other people can do on the basis of merit,
Mm.
on the basis of my competence, and on the basis of everything else but the fact that I have boobs and a vagina.
Right.
Because that then becomes the limiting factor for a lot of things. Oh, she's a woman.
Mm.
Oh, she goes soon born. Her husband fit tell and say me she no come out. All of those types of
Yeah.
things end up, that's the inequality that we talk about.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we, because I think that there's a bit of not victim blaming now, but there's a bit of confusion that comes with just diverse people saying diverse things, different people saying different kinds of things. How do we achieve unity in terms of laying demands, especially on social structures, laying demands on government, on institutions? How do we find that sync between unity and uniformity?
Mm.
Because people, I think that ultimately what we're fighting for is choice,
Mhm.
for everybody to be able to choose without anything limiting. But I find that sometimes even I am conflicted about why is everybody not thinking this. So how do we find that sync between unity in terms of demand, in terms of this is the agenda, and uniformity?
That's a very interesting question. And what makes it super interesting is I've been studying feminism over the past couple weeks. And you look at we're in the fourth wave of feminism,
Right.
right? The first one had to do with people wanted to be able to vote,
Vote.
suffrage,
Right.
etc. For the second, they were talking about equality. We want to feel equal. The interesting thing is, at the time, the people who were pushing for equality were white women. So it was like
Mm,
white women want to be equal, but you black folk, however you are, is fine,
it's fine.
right? Now, the
Right.
third wave of feminism focused on, g- uh, kind of like gender mainstreaming. So this is the entrance of, NGO structures. So we're talking about leading up to like 2005, 2008, NGOs pushing, civil society pushing, and there's like, listen, we need to mainstream this conversation.
Mm,
And we're in the fourth wave that is asking for this thing that you just said,
right.
choice, the freedom of choice.
Right.
So I want to be able to choose to be a housewife, and that
Mm,
should be fine. That's
mm,
my feminism, right?
right.
I want to be able to choose to be a sex worker.
Right.
That's my feminism.
Mm,
I want to choose to be covered up. I want to wear my hijab. It's my choice.
mm.
I want to wear a niqab. Whatever it is, my
My
choice.
choice.
And so I don't think that we should push for uniformity or unity, because when we
Mm,
come to men, we don't say, oh, this man wants to be a sex worker. This is not part of it. No. Men are allowed to do whatever the hell they want to do.
right.
It is with women that we start to try to find buckets.
Right.
Okay, no, put her inside this bucket, put her inside this bucket. Oh, she's a lesbian. Let's put her inside that bucket at the back. Or she's that, or she's that. We don't have these constructs within
Right.
society for men. And that's why I'm kind of excited with this fourth wave, because it's like, let people live.
Right.
Let them live, let them have the full expression of themselves
Mm,
as human beings.
mm,
As long as they are not breaking any laws that have been set by society,
right.
just let people live. Don't let them, don't, no, we don't want unity, we don't want uniformity. Let people live.
Right.
The same way men are able to stand and say, I have 4 wives and I have 27 children, and that means I'm a good legislator. Then you start policing,
Interesting.
oh, that woman came late. She's coming from a man's house. But you're proudly listening to a man talk
Talking
about
about
4 wives and 27 children as a marker of strength and as a marker of competence.
right.
So when you look at these disparities
Mm,
in the way society views women, personally, I just believe let people
let
live.
people live. I get that, and I agree because I think that choice we can't lose sight of that choice. That's what
Mm-hmm,
we're fighting
mm-hmm,
for.
mm-hmm.
But I do know that where we are as a society, it kind of requires a step one, start from here.
Yes, ma'am.
Step two, step it up to there.
Mm-hmm,
And I'm wondering if how do we then what kind of agenda? For instance, let's speak to our context. I always refer back because not because it's the biggest deal,
mm-hmm,
but because it's the most obvious
mm,
representation of women in governance.
mm-hmm.
Um, what could we set as an agenda that it's like, okay, if we solve this, it's the beginning point of resolving A, B, C, D, E.
I think the beginning of this should be, we have to find a way to change the way Nigeria views women. And I say this because, I mean, and you're a civil society person, so you know about the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, you
Yes.
know about the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill. The reason why we've struggled so much with the VAP is because we wanted to pass a law
Mm.
without considering the people we were passing the law for.
Four.
So you get the law passed, and then you have to, it's like you get the law passed after so much advocacy. That's one,
Battle.
yeah, that's one battle. Then you now have to start battling for people to actually do what the law says. And so I think that before we get any more laws passed, we need to
Right.
reorientate people onto the reason why we need these laws. Otherwise, we will get the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill
And
passed,
nothing will
and
happen.
then we'll start battling for people to actually,
Use it.
conform and use that law. So
Yeah.
I think the first place for me is the work that a lot of people are doing in so many different places.
Mm.
It's the conscientization of people. It
Right.
is the this is what is acceptable, this is what's not acceptable. It's the public conversations. It's the reorientation of society, because I don't think we have the time. I mean, people fought for the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill in Nigeria, and then they died in the midst of that battle.
All right.
People aged, people fell sick, and they battled for this thing. And so it's a shame that we're still here. But I do believe that we're at a point where we should be focusing more on the spirit of these laws,
Laws.
as
Right.
opposed to, oh, we have passed the
Just a
bill.
letter. Right.
Because if you look at the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill, to give you an example, you look at the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill and you see that legislators say that it will turn women into lesbians.
Okay.
It will make women start having abortions. And they say commit abortion because, and when
It's
they
a
say
sin.
commit, exactly,
Right.
then you think
Yeah.
about
It
the
already
perception.
puts it. Yeah.
Exactly, and then you hear things within the National Assembly that, like, the way they want to empower women. So this was said on March 8th, I think 2019, that the way they want to empower women is that the legislators should all marry
Extra
second
wild.
wives so that they can
Interesting.
empower more women. So when you look at that type of perception,
Right.
you see that, first of all, these people are not going to pass a law.
Legit.
March last year, they threw out the 5 gender bills.
Right.
This is after. And so when people say, oh, women need to lobby, how much more lobbying?
Do you want? Yeah.
How much more lobbying? When legislators want to pass a bill, I remember Zamfara State, a new governor came in and he wanted to punish the previous governor. And in one day, they had first sitting, second sitting, went to committee, came back, they had third reading, passed it into law, the governor signed it to undo pension and all of those types of things for the previous governor. My point is, when legislators want to do something, they'll do it.
Right.
When Bukola Saraki, former Senate president, was, when they peppered him small with the CCB business,
Yes.
did you see how quickly they passed the law? When they want to do something, they
They
do
do
it.
it.
But when it comes to things that have to do with women, then they say, oh, we need to lobby. We didn't lobby enough. We didn't explain to them. They want to travel and, look at best practices in other countries. And then they do that
And still come back and do nothing.
and not pass, not
Yes.
pass. So I don't believe passing laws, as important as they are.
Yeah.
There's countries around the world that have achieved measures of equality because they had legislation.
Right.
But for that legislation to be effective, there must
We
first be a reorientation of the hearts and minds
Right.
of Nigerians.
Okay, so let's leap off that orientation. How do we do this? My when I'm upset, my approach is let's lock all of them in a room until they get it. But we know that's not possible. That's just in my dreams. But
It's not possible.
please, before they come and carry us here and say, see, that's why we did not want to give them power. They want to lock us in a room. But how do we begin to do this reorientation? And I understand it at a personal level, at every household, taking responsibility for changing the lens from which we view. And we're going to, there's an episode where we discuss religion, and we're walking through all the religions,
Yes, we are.
walking through
Yes.
the Bible, walking through the
Because our
Quran.
religions are very patriarchal.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them. Let's not even all of them.
All
are.
of them, yeah. So we're walking through those because the question is, does God hate women? But let me not let me not digress here and ask, how do we begin, especially at scale, this reorientation?
Well, God loves me, so God definitely doesn't hate women. I thought I popped that in. But how do we reorientate people? I think that, the thing, you're not going to bash people over the head, right? This is a hearts and mind thing. You're not going to indoctrinate them. You're not going to bamboozle or hypnotize them.
Yeah.
So we need to have these conversations. I remember we did a focus group discussion. TechHerNG did a focus group discussion a few years ago, and we're talking about the perfect rape. And the reason why we chose that topic is, like, when you hear a woman has been raped, the first 3 questions you will hear: where did she go? What was she wearing? Who was she with?
Right.
And it's almost like you want to fulfill certain conditions before you agree
consider that
violence has happened against this woman. And so we filmed a bunch of scenarios, from a child to a mother to all sorts of things, even to men who had been raped. And so we played it for this group of men. And one of them was like, asking that, but that his girlfriend, whenever he wants to have sex with her, she when he asks her, she will say no.
No.
So he has to beg her sometimes, say, I feel even force some small. Then she go agree. And she they like her more. And so we're like, you know that every time you have sex with this woman in this way, you have raped her. They say no.
No.
Say if you see her, she they do. No. She they like him. And I'm like, yeah, but the absence of an
Consent.
enthusiastic yes, the absence of consent is the introduction of rape. And he said, but I've been with this girl for I think 4 years at the time. And they had been doing this there, she never go
Back
agree, I
and
go force
forth.
I'm small, all those types of things.
Yeah.
So we now said, you are raping this girl. Every time you've had sex with her in this way, you have violated her.
Right.
And you could see him crumble. He said no, that he loves her. And so we explained to him. So he now said,
Right.
but that she in court that says no. So we said, when you get home, have a conversation with her.
Right.
When she wants to have sex with you, she needs to say yes.
Mm.
This is not I mean, you guys can role play, but I don't believe that they were role playing there. This was him believing that to have sex with my woman,
Yeah.
she has to say no. Otherwise, she wants it and it's not good.
Mm-mm.
Right? So don't forget what I said earlier about choice.
Right.
It's like we're not supposed to choose this activity. You are supposed to make the choice for us and then we go along with it.
Right. Because that's really the interpretation.
Yes. So we had that whole conversation about choice. We had the conversation about consent. And you could see when the thing was over, I've never seen someone look so, deep in thought. It was just like, now wow. Now what? Just like that, just like that. That's the
Right.
type of conversation I want to happen because you actually start to change people's minds.
Right.
You actually start to reorientate them. I haven't, I'm not in touch with them, but I hope that he took that message. And so like we are learning at TechHer to focus when we have conversations like this, we want to have them with men, not with women.
Right.
There's the conversations you have with women, but when we talk about reorientation, then we want to have conversations with men. We want to enlist men as active bystanders.
Right.
So that when something is happening to a woman, boys are not just like, now man, you be. No, my darling, you are committing a crime. We want men to be able to say that's not proper behavior, and those
Right.
types of things. So we're thinking about programs that can do stuff like that because we often, it's like you're telling someone who has been robbed, it's not good to be robbed. I didn't rob myself, darling. Someone robbed me. So why
yes.
don't we talk to the people who are more
Yeah.
likely to commit this crime?
Right. Okay. You said something about, talking to men.
Mm.
I've had this conflict, just in putting kind of like this podcast together.
Mhm.
It feels as if we're getting a lot of women to talk about it. And I resolved it in my heart this way. Not an excuse. I'm just saying what I'm thinking about. That where we are now,
Mhm.
the loudest voices who have done the most work, who have
Mhm.
paid the most attention
Mm.
are women.
Mhm.
So even though we want to have a conversation that, reaches everybody, we're still kind of at the place where it is women who have kind of like done the work. You have no idea how much head racking it takes to try to figure out who is a man, who is not paying lip service to, oh yeah, but I support women. There's a he for she movement. There's a,
Which irritates me, to be honest.
okay, why?
Because I feel like a lot of times it's men preening. It's like, and
Oh.
when I talk about preening, I'm thinking about a peacock.
Yeah.
And it's just preening and saying, "I am he for she."
Yeah.
And I'm like, it irritates me because there's so much going wrong with women in the world. I feel like this is a point where you should put your head down and do the
work.
bloody work,
Right.
and not be, gallivanting and saying I'm he for she. And I remember putting together an event in 2019, and then the legislator who said that women should, that if they pass GEO bill, women will be lesbians. And we'd had this event, and then we had the diplomatic community, blah blah blah. And then he comes and he's like, he has always been a he for she. And I'm talking to my friend who I organized the event with, and I'm like, this is madness. Like, what? How has our event been overtaken? Because
Right.
people need to posture for in
Right.
quotes Oyibo people, So I have a deep suspicion when I hear people start doing the whole he for she business. If you want to do the work, do the work.
Right.
When women are advocating that men shouldn't be stereotyped and beaten and violated and extorted by the Nigerian police, we're not going around and saying we're she for he. We're just doing the
Doing the
bloody
work.
work.
Right.
When we're protesting on the streets and people are saying, oh, those women are leaders, but then when those women run for office, you don't give them the offices, or you say, oh, they should go home. It's too much for that woman. We're not dancing about and saying we're she for he or anything like that. We're just doing the work that needs to be done.
Right.
So I think that the sooner we divest from labels and just focus on getting the work done.
Done.
I'm more proud of, sometimes you see on social media people write, oh, I saw this girl in this place, she was drunk, blah blah blah. I put her in a taxi, or I saw this person slip something in a girl's drink, and then I
Right.
tipped the drink so that the drink would spill. And then I told the lady, I'm a lot prouder of those types of things than I am of people saying I'm he
Hashtag
for
he for
she.
she.
You know, come and
Yeah.
take a cookie because you're he for she, and let me hear what.
Thank you so much. That's such a great way to end this. Yeah, let's divest with the limit. Let's do the work. There's so
Yeah.
much
Speak
work
like, you know,
to
the
be
way
done.
like when you go out for evangelism, right? They say each one bring one.
Yeah.
Every man bring the next person.
Right.
There's so much power in organizing and, you know, in doing work like that. Each person bring the next person.
Right.
When you see, or when you're hanging out with your boys and they are complimenting a woman, and then it moves from complimenting her, somebody wants to touch her bum, one of you should speak up. Don't come on Twitter and tell me you are he for she. Call your person to order, hold them to
Right.
account. When people are having conversations, and, you know, because men will often speak about violence to their peers, but they don't count it as violence. They count it as men being men or boys being boys, and all
Right.
of those types of things.
Right.
So yeah, just do the work.
Thank you so much.